Welcome to the Dream Life is Real Life podcast with your host, Hannah Hermanson, bringing you real-life stories of people who realized their dreams to educate and inspire you to create your legacy of abundance now.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, I am so excited to introduce our guest, Gin Stephens. She is the author of Delay, Don't Deny, Living an Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle, and the book Feast Without Fear, Food and the Delay, Don't Deny Lifestyle. She lives in Augusta, Georgia, where she has been following an intermittent fasting lifestyle since 2014. Thanks to intermittent fasting, or IF, she lost over 80 pounds and has been effortlessly maintaining the weight since March of 2015. Gin manages 3 IF Facebook groups for over 125,000 combined members, and these groups represent a growing IF community from around the world. So you can visit her website, www.ginstephens.com, to read her blog posts and see some inspiring intermittent fasting success stories. Gin is also the co-host of the Intermittent Fasting podcast with fellow author and intermittent faster Melanie Avalon. So you'll be able to visit their website, www.ifpodcast.com, to listen to the podcast, subscribe to updates, and even submit questions. She also hosts the Intermittent Fasting Stories podcast, and that has its own website, intermittentfastingstories.com. What we also should know about Gin is that she earned a Doctor of Education degree in Gifted and Talented Education in 2009 and a Master's degree in Natural Sciences in 1997, as well as a Bachelor's degree in Elementary Education in 1990. And she taught elementary school for 28 years and has worked with adult learners in a number of settings over the years. Now, Gin is working on her health coach certification through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Welcome to the show, Gin.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. And wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
I'm tired just listening to it.
I love it. So I first found Gin through the Intermittent Fasting podcast, and then I gobbled up her book, which I so appreciated. And when I started learning more about her history as an education, in being in education, I knew we definitely needed to have a conversation. So I'm so glad that now that you're retired, you have time to chat with us.
Absolutely. Yes, retirement is a whole different thing. And I'm actually have never been busier, as you could probably imagine. But it's like a good busy, and I don't have to take a shower at 6 a.m. like I used to.
Yeah, it's a different kind of busy. From having a full-time job, which I know is not the same as teaching, to having your own business, it's a different kind of busy, for sure.
It really is, because unlike when you had to be at work at a certain time, like I had to be there clocked in because we had to clock in at my school, and I couldn't be late. But now I have the flexibility, which is both a blessing and a curse, because it's easy to not be productive and you have to, really kind of do it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. My partner was a middle school teacher. He's currently sort of taking a year off and exploring some passion projects. But around September, he was like, oh, this is different than summer. Because he's like having time off. But yeah, that like being productive and still having a purpose, he's navigating. But it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job of that. And I'm super curious to know, how does going from that 28 years of clocking in as an educator, I'd love to know more about this transition into really focusing on intermittent fasting and now the integrative health coaching, or that certification. So talk to us about, your transition.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting transition because I know that a lot of people have a business plan, or they plan for their life, or they have a vision of what it's going to look like. But I've just kind of accidentally ended up where I am now. And it's beautiful. I love the way it turned out, but I think it would have scared me if I'd have known what it was going to turn into. But I started just by, I was looking for some support myself with my own intermittent fasting journey as I lost the weight and then navigated weight maintenance. And so I just started a little Facebook group, back in 2015 that has now grown into this huge worldwide community. And, I was working full time. I'm also a mother. I have 2 sons. They're both at college now. But I was working and then just kind of, supporting people on the side, and then decided I needed to write a book because I was, saying the same things over and over again to people who were starting out. And so I wrote my book. I'm like, all right, everybody just needs everything put into an easy to understand way. So I wrote Delay, Don't Deny, and put it out there. So when people said, how do I start? I could just say, all right, read this. And then I'll be ready to support you. That was really my, my thought with it. It was just, to help people get started. And then as the Facebook groups grew and more people started reading the book, it just became clear that I couldn't do both, really. I could not lead these support communities well and teach full time. So I was distracted while I was trying to teach school. And then I was distracted when I was trying to, monitor my Facebook groups, and I just couldn't do it all. So fortunately, the book has been profitable enough to allow me to retire early. And here in Georgia where I live, we can do full retirement at 30 years, with a certain percentage of our income. And I was at year 28, but I was able to combine sick leave that I had saved up. And also we're able to purchase some time. So I was able to purchase a year and a half of time to put me right at that 30 years of full retirement. So I was able to retire with 30 years at the age of 48.
Wow.
I know. So, I feel
amazing.
very grateful and blessed for the way it has worked out, because, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have had no idea that this would be possible for me. And I'm living, you talked about your partner's passion project, and this has just kind of evolved into my passion project by accident, because I was able to change my own life. And then, I'm a teacher at heart. That's what I do. And so really I've just morphed into another type of teacher. I'm teaching adults and guiding them and helping them be empowered to take charge of their own lives. And that's what's amazing. Like your partner said, hey, this isn't summer. But luckily I did have a summer to transition me into. So, I stopped teaching in May, and then I had summer, and I did lay around a little bit at the beginning, but I just have so many things that I'm working on. Like I was working on a trademark of the phrase delay, don't deny. So my attorney's like, well, you have 30 days to finish this, this, and this. And so then I had to work really hard on that. So everything that I've set myself as a goal. And then, like I had the second podcast that I was working on. I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to set a date, and then it has to be done. And so, having deadlines and goals have really helped me. Every day I tell myself I need to do something productive, and I end up doing a million productive things. But, if there is a day that I want to go and not be productive all day, I can do that. And that's what's great.
Yes. Okay. So much to unpack here.
Oh, yeah.
Resonating with so much of what you say. And what's really standing out to me, though, is that this unfolded when you were on a journey to help yourself and help other people.
Right.
And so often, I know a similar story happened with me, and I was repeating myself so much and I couldn't handle everything at once. And so I went all in. But now I have a lot of people coming to me and saying well, how do I make this my full-time job? How do I monetize this course that I made that I want to give to people? And a lot of what I spend my days doing is bringing people back to how can you help others?
Right.
What is the impact? Because that's when value follows. And when you suddenly do the math, and you can retire a year and a half early. And so I really hope that listeners are hearing that when you help other people get what they want, you will get what you want. And it sounds like that's true of your story.
Right. And it really, like I said, it almost happened. It did. It happened by accident, because I was like, how can I just really help people with this lifestyle? And so, I didn't have to force it. I didn't have to, create a click funnel or whatever that is. I don't even know. I didn't have to it just fell into place, because, I'm living my authentic life. And, people, they're like, wow, you are just how you sound when they meet me. I'm like, well, yeah, this is who I am. 100% of it is just me and my authentic self. And so I think that's an important takeaway. Don't try to be someone you're not, ever, because that isn't going to work. You might be able to make a lot of money, but you're not living your best life that way. And live your best life, be authentic, develop your passion, help other people, and then it will unfold from there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so powerful. So you said when you wrote the book, it was really just to help the people around you. And you said it may have scared you if you had a sort of insight into where the book would take you. And so how have you leaned into this? Have there been like radical changes in your lifestyle or the way people, it sounds like people perceive you the same way, but sort of that transition from school teacher to very popular author and entrepreneur. Have there been things that have changed in your day-to-day life besides not going to work?
No.
I love it.
No,
Yeah.
I'm still the exact same as I was. My husband and I are looking at downsizing our home. Could we afford a bigger home? Whatever. Yeah, probably whatever. But we're trying to simplify and minimize and live a simpler life. I think intermittent fasting has really done that for us because you realize, because I eat in an evening eating window. I haven't eaten yet today. It's late afternoon. And so I've simplified my life in that way. And so it kind of carries over into the other ways as well.
Yeah.
I
Isn't
want
that
to,
interesting?
it is, I'm not trying to live a fancier life or a ritzy life. I'm trying to live, like I said earlier, an authentic life. And it almost makes me want to feel like a minimalist more so.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not a minimalist. You should see how many shoes I have, but they're not expensive shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but I am only living in my backpack. So I'm a
Wow.
minimalist right now. And I would totally agree that this intermittent lifestyle transcends so many things besides just what you eat. So I definitely want to get into a little of that in our conversation today. But just one last thing I wanted to kind of glean out of what you're saying is that being an entrepreneur or going full time into your passion project is not always the buying a fancy house
No.
and becoming more jazzy.
No.
And with social media, especially, I hear from a lot of listeners and clients that it feels like this rat race. And again, a lot of what I try to embody and show people is that it's actually about simplifying
Right.
and doing less to make more of an impact.
And I have rejected all of that, that extra, rat race part of it, just because, I am concentrating on helping people in the Facebook support groups. And, now they're rolling out like charging people to be in Facebook support groups. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. It's going to continue to be free support. And then people are like, can you pay me? Or, people are asking for me to coach them one-on-one for money. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. It's the Facebook support groups. It's free. So, there's lots of ways that I could monetize this, and I just have chosen not to. People buy my book. I would love that. Please buy the book. Listen to the podcast. We'll have some sponsors on the podcast, but it's not all about how many ways can I possibly monetize this,
Yeah. And I think that probably helps you stay in alignment, like you said, and that this is really just your information, your personality, and your mission to get it out and to make it accessible.
That's what I want it to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into it a little bit. We kind of skimmed over what exactly is intermittent fasting. I would love for you to give us sort of the elevator pitch of what is IF.
Okay. Well, intermittent fasting, there are a lot of different ways you can do it. And I'm going to describe the way that I do it, but basically, we don't need to be in a constant fed state. Your body is either in the fed state or the fasted state at any given time. And the way that our society is now, pretty much everyone is in a fed state from the moment their feet hit the floor until they go to bed at night. Because you're, constantly eat breakfast, have a snack, have a latte, have lunch, have a snack, have another latte, have dinner, another snack. Honestly, I think that's the way I was before. That was my daily eating pattern. So you're constantly in the fed state because we've all been told that is, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. The more you eat, the higher your metabolism will be. And so you look around and you see that really everyone is just getting bigger and bigger in our society. That this advice is really not working. So intermittent fasting actually flips all that, eat all the time, flips at 180. And we actually are finding, science is learning that our bodies are not designed to be constantly in the fed state and for us to be eating all the time. There are a lot of things that our body can repair and rebuild. And that only happens if it's not also busy breaking down the food that we're eating. So, I've got links in both of my books that go to the research of why is fasting so beneficial? But we're learning more and more every day. The research on fasting is increasing. Like just this week, I read a new study that talked about how when we're in the fasted state, our hormone ghrelin that actually is boosted during the fasted state also leads to brain cell building. I mean, this is just one new little piece of research that popped out this week. So we build new brain cells in the fasted state. And there, I could tell, 20 other things that are beneficial while we're fasting, but it's linked to longevity. It's linked to decreased inflammation. So I encourage your listeners to, of course, read Delay, Don't Deny. That would be a great place to find the information. But you can just do a lot of just searching of the benefits of fasting, and it's really amazing. I think there's a reason why every single religion of the world, whether you're religious now or not, or follow a religion, every religion of the world, major religions, incorporated fasting as a part of their practice.
Yeah. I was so intrigued when I found just the concept of intermittent fasting. As someone who's had just about every eating disorder in the book, I needed a way to kind of change my relationship with food. And then when I found Delay, Don't Deny, that was really when I started listening to the podcast. And of course, your book is a great resource to not only understand all the ways to do it, but also that it's not just about changing your relationship with food. It's about healing from the inside out. It's about gaining clarity and focus in your life. And I think, I know those are the biggest side effects that I appreciate, is just moving through my day thinking about things other than where's my next latte, how many calories is this, should I, would I, could I, about food. And I think educators and entrepreneurs listening to this can really benefit from at least checking it out and considering the fact, like you said, we don't need to be constantly fueling or obsessed or munching. And it can create a lot of space in your life, your business, and your pants size as well.
That's right. And then you feel so silly once you realize how the body actually works. You're like, why did I think I really needed to be eating all this all day long? And you're like, oh, how am I going to access my fat stores by eating more food all the time, right? So I'm like, gosh, I can't believe we all bought into that.
I know. And it is a complicated landscape. I know you in your book talk about all the fad diets you've been on.
Right.
And I've not eaten, I've eaten way too much, I've exercised, all these things. And like you said, learning more about IF and how simple it is very empowering.
It really is. And it feels, people who are hearing it for the first time may be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get low blood sugar. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to have a headache. I'm going to, be weak. And really, as your body is adjusting, you're not going to possibly feel great for the first week or two. But once your body adjusts to fasting, you actually feel so much better than you ever did when you were constantly riding that blood sugar roller coaster. And that was what kept me constantly looking for that next thing I was going to eat, that mid-morning latte, because my blood sugar was crashing. And, instead, when you're doing intermittent fasting, you stay very steady during the day. You have great energy. And it's really, it's what people don't believe until they try it. And then they're like, oh, well, there it is. I mean, not the first week. Definitely not. It takes some, once your body adjusts it. And I talk about this in Delay, Don't Deny, about some ways that you can make the adjustment process easier. Not everyone needs to just rip off the Band-Aid and start fasting. So
Right. So tell us a little bit of the tactics. People who are curious, interested, how do folks get started, and what would a typical day look like for newbies?
Well, when you're first starting out, realize your body is used to running on blood glucose from the food that you're eating. So your body, I'm not going to say your body's lazy. That's not the right word, but think about it like that as an analogy. Your body is used to getting energy from what you're putting in. So, you have that morning latte and your body uses that for energy, and then your blood sugar goes down, and then your body's like, all right, now it's time for that snack. So anybody who's ever experienced having a headache because they haven't eaten, or feeling a little, like shaky for a minute or two, that's your body saying, all right, feed me. So you have to get through that. So one way you can do this is, ease your way in. The first day, just delay your breakfast a little bit. Keep pushing that time that you're starting to eat later a little bit every day over time until your body starts getting used to that. Another thing that people can do the whole point is you're trying to become fat adapted. And so you want your body to be able to run on fat instead of your own body fat, the body fat that you have stored away just for this purpose. So you can kind of game the system a little bit by temporarily lowering your carb intake, like, have breakfast, but have a low carb breakfast. So your body is having this low carb meal, have a low carb lunch. And then for dinner, just eat your normal food. And I'm not telling everybody they're going to have to now be on a low carb diet. That's not the point of it. But eventually you can maybe leave out that low carb breakfast. Now you're just having a low carb lunch and your body's getting used to, again, running on fat. You're getting that from the food that you're eating. But then eventually you'll find as your body is adapting, you may not need that lunch either. So you can just start with maybe having an afternoon snack. And, of course, over time, you'll figure out what foods work best for you. I eat a lot of carbs. My body does well with carbs, but some people do find that they feel better with less carbs overall in their meal. It's really just, we're all different when it comes to what foods work well for our bodies. But starting off with, the low carb breakfast, low carb lunch, just to get your body adjusted to the fat burning state and then start backing off from those.
Yeah, when I started out, I did something similar, but I was very intimidated. I'm someone who I exercise and I move a lot. I think I thought I had to be constantly fueling. Plus, I get hangry, or I used to get hangry. So I was very skeptical and a little unsure. But how I started was similar. I would only go 14 hours without eating, since my dinner time until my breakfast. I only waited 14 hours and I'd have a smoothie. So low carb, kind of easing into this liquid breakfast and getting used to not having breakfast. And now, 14 hours was a big deal. And now I'm 21 hours in, talking to you, not even thinking about dinner or feeling great. And so I think that wherever you want to start, whether it's just waiting a little bit longer till breakfast or having a low carb breakfast, that's great. But what is the ultimate goal? What time period do people want to get to? Or you talked about fat adaptation. Where are we trying to get after those first couple of weeks?
Now, see, this is the part where I'm not going to tell you because it's going to be different for everybody. You read a lot of things. Whenever someone writes, quote, a diet book, they're like, here's the plan and exactly what to do. And I'm different. I'm not going to tell you that. For me, I needed an eating window of 5 hours or less to consistently lose weight. And I talk about all this in the book, Delay, Don't Deny. When I first was starting off with intermittent fasting, I was having 2 meals within a 5-hour window. I would have lunch at about 12:30 and then I would have dinner at about 5:30. And over time, though, as my body was adjusting to fasting and as it became easier for me, I realized I felt better if I waited later in the day to open my window. So now I'm on what you may call a 1 meal a day pattern of intermittent fasting. And I would not advise people just start with this because it's, you're not ready for it from day one. But now I don't open my eating window until anytime after 4 p.m. usually. And then I'll have a snack most days and then I'll have my dinner. But am I saying this is the best pattern for everybody? No. Some people need a longer window. Fasting is a stressor. And our bodies can get overstressed. A lot of things are stressors. Now, fasting is a stressor. It's a good stressor, but it does put stress on our bodies. So if you're somebody who, has been dieting a long time, dieting hard, like a lot of women do, and you also do CrossFit and a lot of exercise and you super duper work out, and you also have a high stress job, all this together is going to be a lot of stress on your body. So you may be someone like that who needs an 8-hour window, just a more gentle approach. And there's no one right or wrong way to do it. The wrong way, though, I guess, is to just feel like you have to do everything perfectly all at once. Some people think, well, then the shorter the eating window, the better. No, not necessarily. A 1-hour eating window may be perfect for one person and way too much stress for another person. So you'll find your own sweet spot, but only by experimentation.
You guys, this is why I hated to love gin at the beginning. When I first started listening and reading, I was like, makes sense, but give me the rules. When it comes to diet, I feel like it's an all or nothing thing. And so I kept listening. I love, the way you guys run your podcast where you just answer listeners' questions. And it made me realize there really are so many ways to do it. And continuing to beat myself up is just making this another diet. And I needed it to be something different. So I've been, intermittent fasting on my own terms. Some days, like some weekends I take off. My cousin got married yesterday and I was eating pizza at 3 a.m. and you bet I also had brunch in the morning. So I didn't fast that day, and just having that grace to be flexible and really fit it into your real life has been really great. So I'm not surprised you didn't have like a clear answer, but I do think it's clear that experimentation and giving yourself grace and also doing your research and grabbing the book and learning about what's really happening with you is the secret, if you will.
It is, because I really do genuinely believe that someone could follow me around and eat exactly like I do, the exact foods, the exact whatever, do exactly what I do and have completely different results, because maybe their sweet spot is a shorter window. Maybe their sweet spot's a longer window. Maybe the foods that work well for me don't work well for them. So it would be silly for me to say, here's what you do. I really do believe, though, and I talk about this in Feast Without Fear, I think every diet book that's overly prescriptive is like somebody found out what worked for them and said, I'm just going to write this down and I'm assuming it's going to work for everybody, just like this.
Which is crazy when you look at people. We're all just so different. Yeah,
we are. And we realize that, obviously every diet that's 180 from the other has worked for the person who wrote that book. But then you read this other one that's 180 the opposite of that, and that worked for that person too. So accept that we're different, and you've got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think just one last note I want to make about the lifestyle is that it's not just if you have a lot or any weight to lose. Like I said, the things that I've really benefited from is the clarity in my brain and less stress, always worrying or looking for food. And I'm traveling full time. And so that makes it a lot easier to not be paying for 3 meals a day and finding them. And then also that healing element. So if anyone's listening, just keep in mind, it really is for everyone to check out.
And I like to say it's the healing plan with the side effect of weight loss if you need to lose weight. For example, my husband has always been lean our whole married life. And when I wrote Delay, Don't Deny, he was not doing intermittent fasting, but he is now. He does about an 8-hour window every day, and he has 2 meals within it. And he doesn't do it for weight loss. He does it for the health benefits.
Yeah. And then just to clarify, when you say 8-hour window, that means we're eating for 8 hours of the day and not eating for the other
16,
which equals 24. Got it.
Right. So he opens his window with lunch every day, and he has lunch and then he has dinner. So he does a 2 meal a day pattern.
Awesome. Well, Jen, you have been giving us so much knowledge and wisdom already, but I want to transition into what I call the pop quiz. I know as a gifted and talented teacher, you're going to breeze through it, but I just have 3 last questions for you.
Okay.
First one is, what is one thing that people can do today? Maybe it's an obvious question, but that baby step to get them closer to the lifestyle and the energy that they want.
I really think you need to research to find out what goes on with intermittent fasting, to understand how it works, because there are a lot of mistakes you could make, and you could think you're doing intermittent fasting. Like, for example, you could be putting creamer in your coffee, or, having a diet soda. And so you're like, look, I'm fasting. And you really aren't, because your body, there's a whole lot of science behind it. So the one thing you need to do is really research intermittent fasting and understand what you want to accomplish in the fasted part of the day. So, of course, read Delay, Don't Deny. That's why I wrote it. It's written in a way that really gets it across to you. I'm a teacher, and I wrote it from the perspective of a teacher talking to you like I'm your friend, explaining intermittent fasting. It's also an Audible or audiobook version, so you can listen to it if you don't like reading, or you can, research it somewhere else. But I tried to break it down in a way so that you would understand why it's so important we call it the clean fast, where you only stick to water, black coffee, and tea.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think it answers question number 2 as well, which is, what is a tangible resource that you would recommend listeners getting their hands on?
Say that to me again. It faded out for part of it. Read number 2.
A tangible resource you would recommend listeners to get their hands on.
Well, yes, that is delay, don't deny, living intermittent fasting lifestyle. And again, there are a lot of books out there about intermittent fasting. And the reason I wrote mine is because when I was trying to explain to friends how to do it, I would say, okay, well, here's the book, but in the book, he says drink diet soda and actually you shouldn't, and here's why. Or like, here's a really good book. It's a great resource, but it doesn't really tell you how to do it, So, and that's why I wrote the book, for my friends and for my family and for people that I love so that they would know how to do it. So get the book. Sorry.
No, it's so true. And it is really written very user friendly. And like you feel like you're friends with Jen after reading. And then you get to listen to her podcast and the relationship continues. So I am glad you mentioned that again. Last question, number 3 is where can people find your book and learn more about intermittent fasting and what you do?
Well, I have a website and you mentioned it at the beginning. It's jenstevens.com. That's GIN Stevens with a PH.com, and everything is there. My book is, if you want the paperback, it's only available on Amazon at this point. The ebook is available through all major ebook platforms. So any ebook platform you like, you can find it there and download it. Kobo, Scribd are 2 of the less known ones, but of course then there's iBooks and there's Nook and there's Kindle. It's available for all of those. Plus the audiobook is available through Amazon, through iTunes, and also through Audible. And just, check it all out. There are a bunch of great success stories on jenstevens.com, so you can start with that and look at those. And people who like podcasts, check out Intermittent Fasting Podcast. And you can also listen to Intermittent Fasting Stories after November 1st.
Oh, I'm excited for that one.
Oh, it's fabulous. Yeah, it is. It's other people telling their stories, not me. And I have just loved it. I've already recorded 7 of them. And every person has such a different story. And it's amazing hearing them tell how intermittent fasting has changed their lives. So really, I think people who like the Intermittent Fasting Podcast are going to really like this one.
Amazing. Well, Jen, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us and give us some education today. Are there any last parting words of wisdom you have for listeners before we wrap up today?
It's just that, when you're starting intermittent fasting, it's not a diet. It's a lifestyle. So you need to leave the diet mentality behind you, let that go. And you're living a life now, and this is going to be part of your life. If you decide to implement it, it's going to change your life in many ways. You're going to learn about yourself, and it will free you up to find your own passion project that you didn't even know you had.
That's right. And make your dream life your real life, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, Jen, thank you so much. Friends, we'll be back next week, maybe with some more black coffee than this week if you decide to take up an IF lifestyle. But we'll have another guest joining us to help, again, make your dream life your real life.
You've been learning how to make your dream life your real life with Hannah Hermanson. To get the resources mentioned on today's show and to listen to past episodes, visit www.dreamlifeisreallife.com.